What's up, Airsofters? Sound from the Airsoft Headquarters here, and welcome back. It's morning here, so I've got just a regular cup of coffee. If anyone's wondering what's inside of here, it's just coffee today. Anyway, we have a very, very special video where we're going to take the Elite Force 19X and compare it to the WeTech 19X. Now, the reason for this video is because in conversation with customers here at the Airsoft Headquarters, as well as looking at several forum sites online, there is a big misconception or misinformation base between the Elite Force and the WeTech platforms. Now, there is a big confusion because a lot of people think that Elite Force and WeTech are the exact same. In fact, we have gotten some shade because some people think that the WeTechs are the Elite Forces, and so we are selling WeTech products at the Elite Force pricing, which is not accurate because we, as Airsoft distributors, cannot get the WeTech platforms through a legal system at least. In fact, anyone that purchases WeTech from overseas, you have about a 50-50 chance of it getting seized by customs and you never getting your money back and you're never getting the pistol back. So I was lucky first try to get one of these. What we're going to do is we're just going to go over both of them, show you exactly why the Elite Force product is better in every way than the WeTech. And I say that with absolute confidence because I have used the Elite Forces. I have also used WeTechs personally. And there's a reason why I go with Elite Force instead of the WeTechs. And just so you guys know, I'm coming from the mindset of I am going to be a player that wants to have a solid secondary, which is going to be a Glock. I'm not approaching this from the standpoint where I would be using one of these pistols as a primary onto a field or possibly within an indoor environment. So just so you know, that's where I'm coming from. I'm not going to try to approach it from the standpoint of what is all available as far as aftermarket customization and upgradability, but I will touch on that. So anyway, just so you guys know, I have done some research as far as WeTech, and WeTech has been a manufacturer of steel mold since the early 80s. It wasn't until 2008 that they released their AWSS system, their Advanced Weaponry Simulator system, which has influenced and redesigned the modern gas blowback system. We at the Airsoft Headquarters completely recognize that through their current contribution, through their manufacturing of rifles, as well as their continued production of Airsoft replicas, they have in fact been a big influence as far as what is currently available on the market. So we're not trying to discredit them as a company at all. In fact, a lot of their platforms have a lot of aftermarket parts available for very, very awesome and unique customization platforms, or a lot of upgradable platforms to where these are going to be very high-end performing platforms and can be seen in a lot of fields across the entire world. So we're not at all saying that WeTech as a brand is bad. What we are saying is that very specific platforms within these very specific constraints are probably not what you would look for. For example, like I had said previously, I did in fact have a WeTech pistol at one point. During that point as a player, I also had an APS rifle. I had it for a couple of years, and every time that the APS rifle went down on me in game, I always went towards the little bit more reliable WeTech. So if I had to put APS and WeTech on a scale, WeTech would be one slot above APS in my personal book. And again, that's all that it comes down to is personal experience. Now, from what I've seen based on these forums and from what I've seen from customers inside of here, the vast majority is a player base that has had nothing but issues and problems with the stock configuration of pistols or rifle platforms. Now, if you are part of the 5% of the population that has a WeTech pistol or rifle and it works flawlessly, stock, and outperforms everything else on the market, great. You are part of the 5% and you should feel lucky. Now, for everyone else, the vast majority, the 95% of us, we all seem to have some sort of problem. In fact, in a lot of the forums where players that pick up a pistol like this and ask the general group what type of upgrades or customizations should they do right away to it, a lot of people are chiming in and saying replace everything on this. So I thought it only fair that I look on those same forums and see what people have to say about this. And the majority say they run great as is. The couple of problems, or at least the majority of problems that people are having, is when they try to get anything as far as a third-party manufactured part and try to install it onto the Elite Force Glocks, which are very specific as far as spec, and all the third-party manufacturers don't have the correct specs in order to fit in the line. So there is quite a bit of issues. So I have one Glock of the Elite Forces that is dedicated just to aftermarket parts. So I've got a RMR mount and a different barrel, some different internals in here as well. And for the life of me, I can't get it to work. Versus the 19X, which I've been running stock on green gas and CO2, performs phenomenally. I have several other Elite Force Glocks as well within my collection, such as the VFC CO2 Glock, which I have in parts to show you some of the internals later on. So just so you guys know, I have seen and I have played with both configurations, and I do have my preferred platform, at least my preferred brand. So I'm going to try to approach this in as unbiased of a point of view as possible, just kind of looking at it from, you know, a secondary point of view as well when I start to judge these, not based on if I were to use these as primaries. So let's get into it. I think I've spoken up. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, we're going to take a look at the externals. Now, first and foremost, we're going to look at the 19X. Obviously, the WeTech 19X, obviously, the slide is going to be unmarked with absolutely nothing on it. It is completely flat. You can get aftermarket slides that are going to be fully licensed, and those are going to be running $85. So if you do want the option of getting something that will look realistic, or at least more accurate, those are options. There are options available. So it is going to be a metal slide. The frame itself is going to be polymer. The trigger is going to be polymer as well. All of the magazine releases, the pins are all going to be metal as well, just as they should. The barrel itself is going to be metal as well. The spring guide is going to be a polymer configuration. Yep, that spring guide does feel polymer. Magazine externally is going to be a metal with metal valves. That should be a no-brainer. And then a polymer base. Obviously, any sort of points that would normally have the Glock license on them is going to be just WeTech or made in Taiwan. Like on the left hand slide here, it would normally say Glock 19X 9x19 Austria. And then on the bottom of the frame here, it is going to, it's supposed to say Glock, but it says We. On the other side here, there are supposed to be individual license, or not license, but parts numbers. On just the barrel, we have We T5168 and a couple other numbers and letters there. And then there's supposed to be an identical parts number on the slide itself, matching the barrel. On the bottom here, there is a serial number, perhaps. The serial number does double as a external safety, so if you've got a tool, you can push that downwards and you can engage with the hammer engaged. You can push that downwards, so external safety is engaged and you cannot pull the trigger. That is a feature that is seen on the Elite Force 19X. The WeTech's full blowback, I don't know why they feature those, but they do, so there's that. Otherwise, the trigger safety does function on there, so I have my finger just on the edge of the trigger, not engaging that safety, and once I engage it, it clicks. Standard Glock sights Looks like standard Gen 4 checkering here. A quick note is myself and another real Glock owner, when we did first pick this up, we noted that it was wrong feeling. Reason being is that the front of the grip on the WeTech, I believe this one is more rounded. Yep, so the WeTech has a more rounded face to it, which is incorrect. The real 19X uses a flat face, or a flatter face. So the Elite Force does have a more accurate grip as far as the dimensions and the curvature of the grip itself. So comparing to the real 19X, the Airsoft 19X has a more accurate grip to it. But with the WeTech, that's what we have for externals. I'll do some panning over, looking at the 19X. And then we have the Elite Force 19X. The Elite Force being the fully licensed. Those of you who do not know, Elite Force is the Airsoft branch of Umarex, Umarex being the license holder for Glock. Under Umarex, there is Elite Force, which does the Airsoft. There is Rect, which does the Nerf dart stuff. There's Umarex, which does the air guns, the steel pellets or steel BBs. And then there's the Umarex, something with the with a crossbow or a HPA dart. I forget what that brand is, but there's a lot of stuff underneath the Umarex umbrella. And so we have the Umarex Elite Force Glock 19X. Obviously, just like that of the real firearm, as far as coloration and external features, I think that the coloring tone between the slide and the frame is slightly different compared to that of the real one, but otherwise very similar to the WeTech. A metal slide, metal barrel, polymer frame with that Gen 4 texturing on there. The metal magazine release, metal pins where they all need to be, the polymer trigger, a proper dual spring guide rod. Excuse me, the WeTech uses a Gen 3 type of spring guide rod for anyone that is a Glock fan. This is not accurate versus the dual spring guide rod, which is accurate, just so y'all know. Standard Glock sights, which actually these are more accurate since these use a 3-dot system versus the 19X from WeTech, which does the drop in the bucket. The 19X uses a 3-dot, more accurate. The drop in the bucket is more of a 17 and 19 configuration. And then looking at the magazine, for the 19X, we do have a metal configuration, a plastic slide, and then the rear of the magazine compared to that of the real one looks to be more accurate. If we do the WeTech compared to the real, not accurate. As far as looking at the specific cuts and diameters of the holes on the back of the real one, the 19X is more accurate. The WeTechs use smaller diameter of holes, not accurate. We don't want small holes. So overall, externally, they're fairly similar. I did do a measurement as far as using a micrometer to look at 1/1000th of an inch as far as dimensions compared to that of the real 19X. So we looked at stuff like the width of the slide from the inside of the serrations to outside the serrations, the slide height, the barrel diameter, the width of the chamber from the ejection port to the rear of the slide, ejection port to the front of the slide, the rail groove to the top of the slide, you know, just kind of all over. We looked at the mag well, etc., etc., etc. So we compared 1/1000th of an inch measurements of the real 19X. We also did the same with the Elite Force in the same spots, and we did WeTech in the same spots as well. And looking purely at which measurement is closer to that of the real one. The Elite Force 19X has more measurements that is more accurate to that of the real one. As far as looking at the slide height, the Elite Force and the WeTech were off by 5/1000th of an inch. Yeah. WeTech being thicker, Elite Force being thinner for the height of the slide. And so that was one where it was kind of right in the middle. Couldn't tell which one was closer. So that's one. But overall, Elite Force is more accurate. So we're gonna have to give external configuration for being fully licensed and being more accurate to that of the real one. WeTech, if you guys are a fan of unlicensed and not quite so accurate, overall the feel of the frame itself and the configuration of the slide and the magazine are still solid. I'm not saying that they're bad or inadequate, but as far as, you know, looking at something that's going to be a secondary, I would prefer something that's going to have the Glock, true Glock license, for a little bit better quality control, I feel like. Looking at the internals, that means taking the slide off. Now, the reason I went with the 19X is for comparison. The 19X was the most accurate, or the most recent for production, both from WeTech and from Elite Force at the time of the purchase. Now, I did have to wait for the WeTech to come stateside, but at the time of purchase, the 19X was the most recent of production. So looking purely at the slide, the Elite Forces use, I think, a more accurate locking block. Again, the real Glock. So disassembling, and I have the real Glock in the middle here. The WeTech seems to be a more accurate representation of the real one as far as looking at the locking block for the slide. The Elite Forces are much thicker compared to the WeTechs, and even more so thicker compared to the real ones. However, because the up on the rail system, up on the frame, since the Elite Forces use a more accurate serial number type of system, that front end looks more accurate. Looking towards the rear, obviously the hammer assembly between the real and the Airsoft is going to be vastly different. But what is unique, by no means am I a professional gas blowback technician, but I will say that the WeTechs are using a ball bearing hammer versus the Elite Forces, which are using a triangle hammer. Also looking at the hammer springs, the Elite Forces seem to be under more tension, and I thought I saw yesterday that there were 3 coils instead of the 2, but in just playing with the frames like so, I will say that the WeTechs have way less tension. And then again, based on the forums, if you are using CO2 magazines on the WeTechs, you do need to upgrade the hammer spring as well as the hammer assembly in order to handle the higher pressure of CO2 valves. I personally run CO2 magazines and green gas magazines on the Elite Force 19X because that hammer spring does have more force behind it. There, in that configuration, you can run CO2 on these. In fact, I have. Based on suggestions as far as upgrades and aftermarket changes for parts later on down the road, overall it seemed that the consensus was after about 5,000 to 8,000 rounds, you would eventually need to replace that entire hammer assembly if you are doing heavy gameplay on green gas or if you're regularly using CO2. Versus the Elite Force 19X, which I have regularly used green gas and CO2 mags on. In fact, I prefer the CO2 magazines, so I run the CO2 in this more. I would estimate that I have gone through 3 times as many BBs inside of just this pistol, and I have not had to change anything on this guy. This is one of my personal ones that I use regularly. And so just looking at internal parts as well, it doesn't seem like anything needs to be changed out immediately. In fact, I don't see anything as far as excessive wear and tear as far as a gas blowback pistol. So after what, 15,000 shots and still nothing breaking down or broken, I'm gonna have to give internal, at least for the frame, give that one to Elite Force as well. Now, I'm sure that there are super upgraded aftermarket parts available for the WeTech hammer assemblies. In fact, I completely agree that the ball bearing does seem to be more logical as far as a part that would need to be installed in order to make sure that the hammer assembly does have enough longevity inside of it. However, just based on experience and use, that doesn't really seem to be accurate. So just from what I have seen from heavy use, this one works from the Elite Forces. Moving up to the slides themselves, the Elite Force is going to be using a dual spring guide rod, which is more accurate to that of the real one. The WeTechs are using a single shaft guide rod, which does not work very well as far as managing the recoil and the force of using CO2 magazines. So something that would probably need to be changed out for a 150 or a 180% spring guide rod, just so you guys know. The WeTechs are using a older style of rotary wheel for the hop-up adjustment. The Elite Forces use something a little more accurate that I personally have not seen. It is a wheel, but not in the traditional sense. It has large triangular cuts on the wheel that you can adjust, and it has a very satisfying and heavy click as you rotate that in and out of place. It also makes it somewhat difficult in order to disassemble, which is ideal because you want the gas pistols to hold their zero and remain consistent for as long as possible. With the type of hop-up adjustments that the WeTechs are using, those can lose their zero and lose their consistency over time, which is really not something that we want to see. And so aftermarket, I have seen that there are upgraded rotary wheels, as well as a TDC modded outer barrel that you can install on the WeTechs, specifically to have a top dead center hop-up adjustment tool, which is what the Tokyo Marui Mark 23 or the Nabridge SSX 23 seem to be using. So the TDC is overall more accurate in airsoft, but since they don't come in stock with them, you have to either do that modification or purchase that specific part. Versus the Elite Forces, which have a better hop-up unit. In fact, these can be adjusted out without having to disassemble. So if you got the correct size Allen screw, you can just rotate your hop-up wheel without having to disassemble the pistol. So you can just sit there and just plop, plop, plop. Uh-oh, I went up in weight, so I need to make an adjustment. Boom, adjustment done. Rack another one, plop, plop, plop. Oop, not enough. I need to go one more. Plop, plop, plop. Perfect. So for that, I'm gonna give that to the Elite Forces as well. Let's go and look at the housing. So both are going to be a metal housing for the blowback unit. The Elite Forces seem to be thicker, so running CO2, that has not wielded any sort of problem. Overall, the blowback units themselves are very similar looking. The WeTechs use a rounded nozzle versus the 19X. In the back there, it is squared off. And if I remember correctly, the squared does allow more volume of gas, resulting in more recoil and a little bit more consistent of air volume as it goes through the nozzle itself. That is what I have read. I have not seen that to be any sort of physical representation. At least I haven't been able to see it myself in gameplay as far as whether a circular nozzle system is going to be better than a square nozzle. Now, one of the biggest things when it comes to the Airsoft Glock series is it's going to be the licensing that is available for the replicas. Now, I am well aware that there are multiple other brands that are producing these Airsoft Glock replicas, whether they are licensed or unlicensed. I am well aware. I specifically went with the VTEX because for the demographic of players that I personally interact with here at the store, the biggest suggested brand as far as a inexpensive or alternative to the licensed stock is VTech by a vast majority. I like to say vast majority. But really, for all of the Airsoft players that want to get a Airsoft Glock, they usually pick up the VTEX. Of course, there are going to be a couple of individuals that will have picked up the Tokyo Marui if they want to do any sort of custom build, because Tokyo Marui does have a wide selection of those as well, specifically the PTS slide systems, which are not available for the VTEX. So they generally pick up the Tokyo Maruis if they want some of the cool slides that are available. Now, the Elite Forces are one of the only ones that come with the full licensing trade on the slide itself, because it is the only licensed product that we can get for a Glock. I am well aware that you can get the licensed slide here. While it is not the official licensed slide, I know that they are available, and you can purchase additional slides for the VTech pistol specifically. Now, those are going to be an additional purchase unless you want to purchase the pistol itself coming with the slides and with the licensed frame, which some sites have those priced at $180 to $210. More expensive than the licensed Elite Force Glocks, coincidentally enough. So if you do want the licensed product, you can get them cheaper from Elite Force. Now, some players really don't particularly care about the licensing, which is fine if you're just a player that wants to do a replica kit, and that kit does include a Glock. Of course, you're going to get something that's going to be inexpensive just to go with your gear. Quite a few players actually have real Glocks, and some real firearm enthusiasts are picking up Airsoft replicas because it is now becoming an inexpensive alternative as a training platform, because real ammunition is becoming very, very, very scarce and very, very expensive if it is found. Specifically, 9mm and 5.56. Those are the most used calibers here in the US, and so they are sold out the quickest. Now, Glocks, quite a few of them are going to use the 9mm caliber. There are going to be a couple that use alternative calibers, but again, those are becoming more and more scarce. So real firearms enthusiasts are turning towards Airsoft as an inexpensive training platform, as well as an inexpensive recurring cost for consumables of gas or the BBs themselves. And so they're looking at the VTEX, the Tokyo Maruis, or the Elite Forces, and they're doing all the considerations that the more elite airsofters are thinking about as well. Do they want something that's going to be cheap and inexpensive that they're just going to use in conjunction with their gear just to shoot on the weekends or in the evening inside their garage? They probably don't want something that's going to be, you know, a fully licensed that they have to pay all this money for, which brings them to the Tokyo Maruis or the VTEX. A lot of aftermarket parts are available for the real Glocks, and so a lot of firearm enthusiasts are going to try to replicate their current kit based on what they currently have. That does include compensators, RMRs, alternative slides, the Polymer 80 frames, some speed triggers, magwell enhancements, stuff like that. Those are all available for the VTEX and the Tokyo Maruis, as I am aware of, but they are not nearly as available for the Elite Force licensed. Because these have been out for about a year and a half now, aftermarket compatibility is going to be fairly slim. So when it comes to getting a licensed product, if you want to run it stock, just throw it into your gear and use it as a trusty secondary, the Elite Force is probably going to be the one that you want to pick up. And then if you want to have the option to do any sort of crazy customization as far as anything that's going to be RMR, compensator, a different frame like I was saying before, those are going to be readily available for the VTECs and Tokyo Maruis, but are becoming more and more popular with the Elite Force specifically. So if I suspect in another year, we're going to have a huge explosion of available parts for the Elite Force pistol specifically. I'm already finding an abundance of parts for the Elite Force Glock as far as aftermarket slides, aftermarket barrels. In fact, that's why I have this one specifically here in the store, so we can get aftermarket parts and we can test it out. These are all from what was immediately available earlier in the year, which resulted in not a very great selection because you get stuck like that. So this we have just laying around. Got more parts coming on the way. I'm not getting any more parts for this, so don't even bother asking. For the 19X, I will consider getting some more parts as well, so we can get that figured out as well. Next, we're going to talk about availability. Now, why I went with the 19X is because at the time of purchase, these were the most recent pistols that were were available from Elite Force and VTEC. I think, if I remember correctly, there have been newer models that were released from VTEC. Not so much anything newer here stateside, so we are stuck with the 19X being the most current platform. But since VTEC is a clone, these are available only overseas. You cannot get them anywhere here in the US as far as a brick and mortar store, and you should not be able to find anywhere online as far as a like an actual business or company that is selling the VTEC clones. You should not be able to find those, but some people do work around them. The 19X here, like I said, is the official license, so we can get them here in the US pretty often. Now, granted that currently we do have a national pandemic, or not a national, a international pandemic, so shipping times for overseas airsoft companies have drastically slowed down. So unfortunately, that is something that we have noticed here as a brick and mortar store. It is becoming more and more difficult for us to bring in the product that you guys want in the depth that we want. So unfortunately, the 19X specifically is a little bit harder for us to bring in just because production has slowed down, but the needs have increased. But that's just business. So the VTEC 19X, when I purchased it, it took 2 months and 9 days in order to get here onto my doorstep since the time of purchase. Now, coming from overseas, you may think that that is a pretty average ship time. I think it's fairly slow, especially since orders from Red Wolf Airsoft have arrived here within 10 days. It's also very, very difficult because customs could seize this at any time during transportation and they could not send it, and I could not get a refund from the purchase. So then I would be out. Let's see, this one was $100 and I would not be able to get that back at all. Versus just going to your local airsoft store and spending an extra 70 bucks and then you get it right away. So there's the option of getting it right away, spending a little bit more, or spending less and getting something maybe, right? It's always a gamble when you purchase these types of things from overseas. You might get it, you might not. But since we're talking about availability from overseas, I'm not going to tell you who I bought this from because they are a legitimate business and I am here just to talk shit about the VTEC products. So in order to, I guess, trick or fool customs, the VTEC Glock was put into individually bubble wrapped pieces that you then have to reassemble yourself. So the magazine was in one set of bubble wrap. The slide was in another set of bubble wrap, tied in with the inner barrel and the spring guide in a separate bubble wrap, and the frame in a completely different bubble wrap as well. So you had to piece it all together, and then it comes out like this. But because they're shipping it in parts instead of one complete kit, somehow that's different from what Customs requires, I don't know. Since this is a 19X, there is a lanyard loop, which I could install. I'm choosing not to. Some aftermarket grips that I don't know if they are different sizes. It does not look like they are, so I don't know what to do with those. Several pins that probably have to do with the grips. A blown up parts list that does not include every part that's in the pistol, so that's useless. As well as a very thin manual. I think it's a total of 9 pages. It's a total of 9 pages in broken English that tell you how to fill the gas, how to load the magazine, how to load and release the magazine from the pistol, loading the first shot to shoot it, the shooting process, disassembly and basic maintenance, as well as explosion, and general tips and tricks on how to be safe with your airsoft replicas. So, again, it was really, really broken English. The box itself came in this condition. So all of that bent and not quite battered or torn, but it's just bent and looks bad. It came in this. It came in this condition. But otherwise, it's just a cardboard box that is 19X in black. So, not great packaging. Compared to the Elite Force 19X, which you can get readily available either from a brick and mortar store or from purchasing it online from your local airsoft store. Since this is a licensed Glock product, this is going to be a much, much nicer Glock box. Not broken and tattered unless something happened in the handling of your local airsoft store. You can open it up, and this one says, "Do not return to the store, instead contact Umrex." A significantly thicker manual that has delayed the production of some of the airsoft Glocks here in the US. And instead of 9 pages, I think it's 15 pages. Yep, 15 pages of just English on the safety instructions before they get to the description of the individual parts, as well as operation, filling the magazine. They have a lot of caution subtext that you should make sure that you read, because on this one specifically, loading and unloading BBs, they tell you exactly which BBs you should not be loading inside of your magazine and which ones are good to go. So they took the time. They also show you how to use those stock Glock iron sights, how to clean and maintain the pistol, as well as a very short troubleshooting graph and some warranty information. Again, this thick pamphlet is in English, French, and Spanish. And they even include a little spot in the back that you can put your individual notes if you want to keep track of accuracy and consistency and range of your airsoft replica using different types of gases and what the accuracy and consistency at different distances, or if you just want to say, I don't know, whatever other notes you would want. Instead of being in parts, the Elite Force Glock comes in one single configuration that is wrapped in plastic that you can just open up and pull the Glock out of. Comes with the hop-up adjustment tool, as well as multiple magazine O-rings. I think the initial batch of the Glocks did not come with O-rings. All of the following Glocks did come with spare O-rings for the gas magazines specifically. So cool that they included those, because those are what need to be replaced if anything does leak from the magazine. And after that, it's a much more decorated box, way better than the WeTech Glock box, and that goes back over there. So availability as well as the quality of the packaging goes to Elite Force, because it is significantly more readily available than anything that you can get overseas as far as the WeTech replicas. So we talked briefly about the price points. The Elite Force 19X here at the Airsoft Headquarters is for sale at $179. There is some fluctuation depending on who you go to and where you go to purchase it. So there is a fluctuation of, I think the lowest I've seen it is $164. And there is some discrepancy because Amazon purchases result in a lower price point, or if you're getting it from any sort of discount code or coupon, that's going to lower the price as well. But for retail price point, MSRP or MAP, I think we have these at MAP at $179. And then the unlicensed one that I have here, I bought for $95. So that would be about $85 cheaper. However, this is a very basic, bare bones, basic bitch ass Glock replica that does not fit any of the proper alignments compared to that of the real Glock, does not have any sort of trades other than the shitty WeTech ones on the frame itself, can't even shoot straight. And we will look at the accuracy in just a minute here. So while it is a very inexpensive platform, a lot of times what I see on forums is that everyone suggests replace everything internally. Now I understand that you can run this stock as a secondary, but if you want a trustworthy, reliable WeTech Glock, you are looking at possibly replacing some internal parts. Again, up to the discretion of anyone on those forums that suggest replacing these parts, such as the inner barrel, the hop-up wheel, the hammer spring, the whole hammer assembly, I think the bucking inside of here. They suggest going with a high flow valve as well from the magazines, and different nozzles here on the top of the magazine. If you're looking at running CO2 magazines, you are looking at very, very specific parts that are very, very expensive. And like I said, if you do want to get any sort of custom slides for this guy, especially for the licensed one to make it a licensed replica, you are looking at spending $85 for that as well. So overall, if you want a similarly performing replica compared to that of the Elite Force Glock, you're looking at significantly more than what the stock Elite Force Glock is going to give you, especially if you're trying to match the performance of the Elite Force Glock. You're looking at spending more money than the Elite Force Glock, which, coming from a logical and economical point of view, why don't you just pick up the Elite Force Glock, save yourself a couple of bucks, as well as saving yourself from having to install all of those parts. From a stock price point, if you plan on just using it as is, the WeTech is going to be obviously the better option because as it is cheaper. Black and white, it is cheaper. The Elite Force 19X, if you do plan on getting better performance, making a more reliable setup, the Elite Force Glock is going to be the better option. As far as saving some of the cost of the parts and just the parts, you're looking at less for this than you would buying this and then buying the upgraded parts. So there's that to consider as well. So then we've got that out of the way, so let's go and look at the velocities. I think we'll do a couple of range testing as well, so let's get into that. So right now with .20s, we're going to look at what the stock velocity is. So since we started with the WeTech, as far as feeling, that's what we're going to start with. So first shot. All right, so 25 total rounds, locked back on the last shot at a slow pace. So we have a maximum of 308 feet per second. That was the very first shot. A minimum of 275, the very last shot. So an average of 291, which is pretty good. That's pretty good as far as a average. We did get through every single shot. We're going to look at the 19X with the green gas magazine. So we're going to clear this so we have a completely blank testing slate. And then here we go. $23 total shots, maximum of 303 feet per second with that first shot, a minimum of 251 on the very last, and an average of 275. Overall, lower than that of the WeTech 19X, but I think you could hear from the sound alone that the Elite Force 19X did have a little bit snappier of a trigger response, especially with the green gas magazines. What we'll do is we're going to test the CO2 magazine and we'll see the results. Fitment is no issue. We're going to zero that out, get a blank slate going, and we're going to start it off. Again, this is a used CO2, it's not a fresh one. All right, so 24 total shots, a minimum of 221. That was the very first shot for some reason. A maximum of 315, which occurred somewhere in the middle there for an average of 297. So overall, the CO2 magazine for the Elite Force 19X did better as far as overall velocity and for the max velocity and for average velocity overall. It had that weird hiccup for the minimum velocity, which I'm not sure exactly what that could be. But overall, CO2 on the 19X does work. Using dry fire techniques, we're going to test cross compatibility with the WeTech 19X using the VFC green gas magazine. It does lock back. There does seem to be a little bit of wobble there. And the magazine fell out. The WeTech 19X with the VFC CO2 magazine. Again, there does seem to be a little bit of wobble there. Locks back. And drops on the first shot. Well, for anyone that says VFC magazines work on the the WeTech, wrong. Now the WeTech magazines in the Elite Force 19X. Well, actually, I'm going to have that forward. Slides in. That is pretty tight. Locks back. And it does shoot. It actually does not come out unless you actually forcefully pull it out, like so. Since I'm hitting the magazine release here, it does not come out by itself. So you do have to pull that magazine out if you do want to retrieve it, but otherwise it does work, it does function, and does have a lock back feature. Since it does function, let's get a velocity reaction out of it. Using what is left in the green gas magazine, well, actually we'll give it a quick little shot of gas. Give it a quick little second to warm up. Rack one in, and we'll just go back here. And it seems to be shooting about an average of 250 feet per second. So the magazine does work. You do get an overall a lower velocity with the WeTechs to the Elite Force compatibility. So in which case, for the players that come in looking for the WeTech magazines for the Elite Force 19X, I say, why would you bother? There are going to be some issues, obviously, with that magazine sticking in, and it's not going to be the same parts that are from the magazine to the pistol itself, so there's going to be some sort of inconsistency there. And for the fact that the WeTech Glock magazines are cheaper, they would rather go that route instead of spending, you know, more money on the licensed product that is properly spec'd for the brand of platform. They would rather suffer the consequences of the lack of performance by getting cheaper magazines, which, as we saw, it can work. There are some issues, and you do get lower performance or less performance. So pick whatever you want. I'd rather have the better performance. For me personally, I'd rather use the CO2 magazines. For me, in my experience, they do offer a little bit snappier of a response compared to that of the green gas magazine, which there should be some gas left, which is a little bit slower. So for me personally, Elite Force 19X with CO2 magazines. I don't have CO2 magazines for the W19X because this one is not spec'd for CO2 magazines out of the box, and I would rather not put any more money into this just to try to prove a point about CO2 magazines. If you want to tell me what CO2 magazines do on the WeTechs, then go for it. Put it down in the comment section below. All right, so the next test we're going to be doing while in our chrono station as well is we're going to be looking at overall gas capacity. Now, when we did the velocity test, we were shooting at a somewhat slower pace in order to get not get any sort of cool down effect with the gas pressure itself. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to try to simulate a combat environment, which means we're going to be pulling from the hip and then just mag dumping as fast as we can. We're going to look at the depressurization effect from that green gas, see what it does, and see if we can get through a total magazine or not. So let's gas everything up. All right, so we first gassed up the W19X, so that's going to be the first one on the list. Again, from the hip and just mag dumping. All right, so that doesn't work. All right, so it fell out on its own accord, and the base plate shut off somewhere. I think I see it. Yep, got it. And we can slide that back on. And then, as if we grabbed it, we're gonna... Nope. One more time. All right, so it managed to shoot through the whole magazine after getting dropped by itself twice. So there we go, durability shot test. And people tell me the WeTechs are great. Anyway, the Elite Force 19X. So again, from the hip. Magazine did not drop and locked back. And then we're going to do the CO2 magazine as well. Again, this one is slightly used CO2, so we don't get nearly as much kick, but we're still going to use it. So from the hip. Okay, locked back, went through all 25 rounds, 24 rounds, 24 rounds. Without any issues, did not drop as well. So we're going to do that again with the 19X, just to see if it in fact is consistent. Rack one back, again, from the hip, we'll see if it does it again. We're looking for consistency. That one did not fall out. I will say that the WeTech is a little bit shorter as far as that trigger reset, so you can spam it. The 19X is a little bit longer of a trigger reset forward, so you do have to ride the line like normal Glocks, real Glocks would as well. And that's the end of the CO2. We'll do it with the green gas, resulting in a little bit slower of a mag dump. So that's what we got there. Overall, in the stock configurations, the WeTech does have a faster muzzle velocity, but with the first test, the magazines did fall out. Oddly enough, not sure why that happened. But if you are okay with purchasing CO2 magazines for the Elite Force 19X, that does result in more consistent velocity and a little bit higher velocity overall. And we did see a couple of issues with the WeTech 19X that did not happen, like the magazine falling out, the slide not releasing. Trying to replicate the magazine fall did not happen, as well as the magazines being stuck. Quick note, if you do press in on the magazine release too hard, it does put it out of position. So that is something. Those issues of the slide not resetting, magazines falling out, and the magazine release are not present on the 19X. I've never seen that ever in the entire time that I have been playing and owning the 19X. So maybe it's just the one that I have, but that is something to take note of. All right, so right now we're going to evaluate the accuracy and consistency of both the WeTech and the Elite Force 19X with a 10-foot shooting result. Okay, 10 total shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so 10 shots with the Elite Force 19X standing back as well. All right, 10 total shots, and that's it. So coming back from the shooting range, we are looking at the accuracy of the WeTech 19X and Elite Force 19X at the distance of 10 feet. And overall, very, very similar as far as grouping size. The Elite Force 19X did drop as far as the hop-up system, but for the most part, majority of those shots were inside of that, the target itself. The WeTech 19X had hop-up engaged a little bit more than was anticipated, which resulted in only 2 of the 10 shots being on the circular target itself. All 10 shots were still on paper between both of them. However, majority of the shots from the WeTech did not make it onto that circular target itself. But overall, they hit paper, and overall the grouping size is very, very similar between the two, but I was not satisfied there. So I kicked it out to 40 feet, and these are the results. So shooting right at 40 feet. All right, so 10 shots. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the Elite Force. All right, 10 total shots. Now let's go look at those results. So with the WeTech 19X, out of a total of 10 shots, we had 3 land on side of the target, 5 out of 10 landed on the paper in total, which means 5 shots missed, versus the Elite Force 19X, where we had 9 shots land on the paper and only 2 hit the inside of the target itself. Overall, looking at how many shots actually hit the target, the paper of the target, at least, I'm gonna have to give it to Elite Force. I mean, the WeTech 5 total shots hit paper, the Elite Force 9 hit, and 1 completely missed. The WeTech, the first couple of shots hit the paper, and some of them hit off the paper. So it wasn't the first 5 shots hit paper and then the rest of the 5 missed. It was kind of all over the place. Like, it was a fairly large spread. So that was not great. The Elite Force 19X, as you can see with the footage, the very first one missed, and then I thus corrected the point of impact by shifting the iron sights upward, which resulted in the following 10 shots hitting the paper. So overall, I'm gonna have to give this one to the Elite Force 19X, being a more accurate and more consistent shot, even up to 40 feet. Now, if you look at the 10-foot one very, very closely, they're similarly sized as far as spread, but the Elite Force is just a little bit tighter. I would say by a half an inch. So Elite Force 19X, more accurate and more consistent. Both of these are pistols that I have personally purchased. The Elite Force 19X was pre-owned before me. The original owner took the orange tip off, which the orange tip was holding the inner barrel in place. Since he removed that, that inner barrel was then floating all around inside of that barrel, which resulted in about a 5-foot spread before I wrapped the inner barrel with any sort of tape. The WeTech 19X, that is going to sit inside the barrel without any sort of issue, so the orange tip can be removed. In fact, a lot of times it's suggested so you can put any sort of tracer unit on there. But once it's shifted forward, the inner barrel is going to align slightly forward once that slide is pulled back. I know it's a little weird that I'm aiming down, looking down the barrel, but it's all for science. And then the Elite Force, similarly, when you pull that back, that inner barrel is going to align forward. However, there's not nearly enough space inside of that there's not nearly enough space inside of that outer barrel in order to stabilize that inner barrel, which I needed to wrap in tape. Now there is still a little bit of wobble. I would say very similar in movement to the WeTech. Actually, so the WeTech 19X, that inner barrel is not stuck, but it is very tight to the inner wall of the outer barrel. So that's cool to see that they made the tolerances that tight. However, logically, that would mean that the W19X would be more consistent. But as we just saw, that is not the case. So suck it, WeTech, and WeTech Glock owners that say that the WeTechs can outshoot the Elite Force 19X. Clearly not something that is possible. Anyway, so since I own both these, I give myself full permission to do what we call the durability test, which means we're gonna beat the shit out of these. So starting off, we have both pistols with the magazines out. We're gonna have the hammers back like so. Magazines out, and then we're going to run through a couple of tests, such as the drop test. And then we're gonna run a magazine through them and see if, or at least look at them, inspect them, see if anything happened. Don't know if I want to go nearly as far as dropping them into any sort of water or anything like that, and as you heard, they're gonna be on concrete. So I'm not throwing it into pillows or anything like that. We're actually going to see what happens and what will break first. So let's do it.
All right, so you ready for this? Catch. Got the Elite Force, so that should tell you where priority is. But yeah, drop this. So we're doing a durability test.
Is it wrong that I used the cannon with the Elite Force and I didn't want that when it hit the ground?
It is not, but I did get your reaction. So I do know that you do have some favoritism.
This one racked just fine.
Alright, so
Real steel. Yep, that one racks just fine. No.
Force this one. Okay, maybe not.
Racking that one on the belt. Works just fine. Talon's still fucking with that one.
Okay. All right, we're gonna get this one to rack one way or another.
All right. I'm racking the Elite Force one just fine on my belt, and Talon's over here messing with the WeTech one.
Oh. Ha ha ha.
What got stuck is the question.
We're gonna pop it, see if anything's broke. So immediately, doesn't look like anything is out of whack or out of order, but I did need to put quite a bit of force into cracking that open.
Whoops.
Battle worn. Otherwise, it goes back, it racks, it slides just fine. Little dent on the orange tip, but
Who needs orange tips?
who needs orange tips? All right, so slide back. We're gonna give it a toss.
Oof.
Elite Force 19X. Slide back. Ooh. Did something shit and fall? Oh. There's the serial number.
No, that's not important.
We'll keep that on the side. All right, Steven, you give it a couple tosses.
Oh, slide open or?
However you want.
Let's do a little bit of a different kind of toss here. Get some skid action in there. I'm gonna see if I can get it to kind of roll end over end. Running, and oh god, my pistol!
Oh.
Do that with the Elite or the WeTech. You know, my pistol!
That one slid a little further.
That one did slide a little further.
Can rack it.
Oh, now there's an interesting development.
What do we got? Oh, slide only goes part way.
That's a good question.
Something's rattling in there.
Something is rattling in there.
Oh, something fell out. It's definitely a piece of metal, which, if I take my eyebrow off to actually get a closer look, that may have been one of the takedown pins inside there. But I'm not seeing specifically where. Well, we can certainly dry fire them. There's the magazine for that.
Got gas in it.
Yes, it does.
Took my finger off the slide release. Does lock back.
Cool.
So it does still function. Got the magazine for this guy.
Magazine fell out.
This guy. Rack's just fine. Fire's just fine. Locks back.
Still locks back.
Yep.
Put the magazine in.
Ooh.
Just like what we
Fair shake.
magazine did not pop out. Hey,
I'm impressed the WeTech pistol is going as long as it is, I must admit. It does still function. Ooh, you do have a slide pop off.
oh, slide did pop off. Well, that is an interesting turn of events. Oh, it still came off. Doesn't look like anything broke. Maybe I'll take that back.
Is your recoil?
Nope, that's
Almost.
that's designed to be like that. Okay. Well, since the slide popped up, we'll give it a gas fire. Long gas, but it still works. Cool. Let's go for something a little harder,
Oh man.
such as.
Oof.
Let's do some golfing.
Yikes.
I'm thinking we're gonna do towards the back there. Let's start with the Elite Force. I'm gonna go forward a little bit so I can get a full swing, and then see how far I can get it. Oh!
Hold on, let me relocate here. Not in a good spot for this. Actually, I'll just go all the way over here.
If it makes it that far.
We'll see. All right, go for it.
Oh, if I can get it. Totally caught fire.
It landed under the table. That one didn't make it so far.
One more.
Hard nonetheless. What I'm curious about is actually how well they're going to resist like a crush, the polymer frame. That's a 10-pound sledgehammer, right?
I think a little bit more. Oh, that was a hard hit. Wow. It's coming to the light. That is pretty gnarly.
Yikes.
See where it impacted there?
Some gouges.
Ooh, is that a crack or a scratch? That looks like a crack on the back there, on the back of the slide.
I think that's a crack.
Looking pretty gnarly. Where's that green gas mag?
On the floor over there.
So far it still fires. Looks like it's still somewhat lined up.
Set that there for a moment.
Hold that, please. Now the Elite Force, wow. That took a hard hit.
Oof. That's a solid split on that metal slide.
Now I did hit it slide first versus the first hits, the second hit on that were on the frame itself.
Sure.
Overall still functions. A little bit more tear here, but I don't think that's a result of any sort of breaks or cracks. Well, the slide itself locked back.
I think that's a direct result of, oh wow, we gotta...
I can almost pull the entire slide off.
That last hit probably did it.
Probably. Well,
Question is, can it be put back together? And
oh, it looks like that the slide itself is bent out of proportion, so maybe
yeah, it is.
we'll put it in the vise.
Squish it back together.
Yeah, definitely that hit on the slide there definitely did it. So we'll keep the frame.
I was about to say, let's do a drop test on the polymer frames with that sledgehammer. Curious which one resists impact better.
Well, since I hit the Elite Force that hard on the slide, it's only fair that I do on the WeTech.
Oh,
That did not go as planned.
that's a catastrophic failure right there.
Alright, so I think we found the result of the durability.
Hey, your barrel's still in place though.
That's like one of the macros.
I want to do I do want to do a drop test on this polymer now that we've got.
Yeah. Now that we have one catastrophic failure.
Yeah. Well, the VFC, I would say for all intents and purposes that the VFC is also out. However,
There is still.
we can probably squish that back and have it still work. Can you get the barrel off? So, all right, we need to set up a scientific drop test here for the. Ooh, that'll work. All right, we'll drop it on the grip and we'll drop it on the frame is what we'll do. Where'd you do with the sledgehammer? There it is. That bar up. If you put the sledgehammer, yeah, there, and then just drop it straight down. All right, this is the WeTech frame going from, it's about a foot up.
I'd say stand back so the handle itself doesn't smack you.
Yep, go for it. All right. So that was a drop on the pistol grip. Oop, rotate it 90. We'll do another one on the actual frame, but that hit the pistol grip itself. Yep, that's the same height. Go for it. Okay.
I don't think that did much of anything. I think we need to go higher.
I think so too.
On the other side or same side?
I'll do the same side. Why not?
I'm gonna go.
Why don't we? Yeah, we'll go from there. All right.
Looks like something bent out of place there. There it was?
Yes. All right. Results after those two drops.
The hammer itself did actuate, but it's still in working order, supposedly. Doesn't look like anything was bent out of place. On this guy, there that did break.
That took a nice. Yeah, right there. That's a good shot of it.
The Elite Force, that was not an issue. So the polymer itself held up well enough to where that wasn't fluctuating.
Yeah, that definitely took a nice bend in there.
Can we just pop back in place? So still does actuate and still work. Yeah. If the slide was still in one piece, we probably could get it to function and fire.
Yeah, so my next question, let's go skip right to that height. How's the front polymer gonna handle a hit like that? See what happens. Yep, that's where it is. Go for it. Oof.
Oof.
That was a catastrophic failure.
So the slide did crack and break off.
That is a bust. All right,
Well, this one's busted.
that might still function though, funny enough.
Probably.
You've got your rails there as well.
All right. So this side, right?
Yep.
From the higher.
Yep.
Going.
So that one, the WeTech did fare a little bit better on the polymer frame there.
I wonder if it's because of the extra material built up from the external safety.
That could be it too. That's true. The Glock,
Oh yeah.
VFC one didn't have a external safety, and the WeTech does have a metal insert in that. It's that sheen that you can see. Does have a metal insert in there where the VFC one does not.
Let's go a little higher up.
Yeah, let's see what the WeTech one can take. So now, clearly the WeTech has won that contest. Let's see what it takes to break it.
Since we're already this deep.
Yep.
3, 2, 1. That's what it took.
That's, yeah, that was probably a 3 foot. We were at 1 foot, then 2 feet, and then that was probably a 3 foot drop is what it took to crack that.
So it broke right on the frame of that metal insert right there. So yeah.
And the whole frame actually looks like it's warped now. Yeah, you've also got a crack on that side as well. Yep. Right there. The whole frame is warped.
Yep, that's cracked and breaking.
Well, we don't have a functioning pistol anymore. Actually, I am curious if we bend the VFC one back, if we can actually run it on that frame. The WeTech beat it out in one. The frame is more durable in the WeTech, that front part, but I think the VFC is winning.
Yeah. Even with 2 pretty big cracks here in the slide, I did bend it back in place somewhat to the best of my abilities.
Let's see if it still functions. See if we can get it on.
We got some grit.
You don't say. It's on.
It is technically working.
Where's the mag?
Here's the mag. It's over here.
Still works. VFC is still chugging.
Let's put some BBs through it.
Yeah.
What, a third of that slide frame gone?
Maybe not so suitable for outdoor play anymore. You know, other than that crack, the lower frame looks like it's in fantastic shape. It's got some nicks, but
it's that battle-worn look. Give it a complete fill of green gas. Back one in. Still fires and still functions.
flawless.
A little bit more sluggish, but it fucking works, man.
If you managed to do that to your pistol at the arena, you still have a pistol at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Still awesome. There we go. The Elite Force 19X. Suck it, WeTech.
Okay, so that was our impromptu durability test, which resulted in a couple of tosses, some hard slides, as well as some pretty heavy impacts once we brought in the sledgehammer. So we tried to be as consistent as possible so we can truly get the best of the best from those results. And I can't get this to fucking go. That's how bad we got this. Now, as you saw from the Elite Force 19X, we did have the slide itself malfunction. There were some pretty deep cracks inside of the slide, which could be bent back in place. As you saw, I'm just looking a little bit closer at it now. I took it to a vise and I was able to push the slide back in. Steven made a very, very good point where the slide of the WeTech itself is going to be a like a mold due to the type of material that it is made out of. But the Elite Force, because we had impacted it first, especially against that slide, and it cracked in that type of manner, especially at the weakest point there, right above the shell ejector. I think that's what it's called. Where did I have that? The ejection port. Yeah, the very front of that ejection port, it is a very, very thin metal. But the fact that it did not break led him to possibly believe that the slide may have been CNC'd. I mean, that is right on the corner where the metals are absolutely thinnest. And it did not break, which is super, super awesome. Obviously, bottom part of the frame itself is broken. You could possibly parts one out from Umarex, or someone's making a different model, like one of the Polymer 80s, which I want to pick one of those up. For me personally, I think the Polymer 80s look baller as shit. And the WeTech is in such poor configuration that there's really no hope for it. You would be looking at a completely new build. I mean, to be fair, you probably want to replace almost everything that is on this guy because of how broken and battered this one is. But just you guys can see that the Elite Force 19X, well, there's no gas. There's a problem. That the Elite Force 19X, after all of that, does still fire and still functions. Versus the WeTech, I can't get the trigger to go. Like, it's in the forward action point, and I'm squeezing as hard as I can, and I can't get it to go. Versus the 19X, it still locks back, still fires, and still functions. Even with the slide guide rod completely exposed, which that's awesome. Like, for how much we put that through, it's still functioning. Maybe I play a game at the arena with this, and just with this. Man, that was rough. Anyway, so I think you guys have some things to consider. Obviously, you knew where my opinion was, that the Elite Force Glock 19X would be superior, and it did show that it was superior as far as overall, I think, cost of parts, if we look at it as a licensed replica point of view, as well as overall performance, which the Elite Force Glock did outperform the WeTech at closer distance as well as longer distance, as well as the fact that you have immediate access to the Elite Force Glock, while the WeTech would be a little bit longer of ship time, as well as the fact that in the result of a durability test, as hard as you possibly could push this, I mean, if you're doing that type of thing to your Glock, you've got to be doing some crazy, crazy shit. Now, granted, you can drop your pistol out of your holster a couple of times in game, which has resulted in a couple of funky cracks from some of the other pistols that I have seen. But I think we can safely say that the Elite Force Glock can for sure take a beating and for sure will continue to work. What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? The Elite Force Glock has outperformed the WeTech in every single way, except for aftermarket customization. I know. I'm not going to bring in the Tokyo Maruis because those I need parts if I want to even use green gas on it. I'm not going to use duster gas. That's stupid, right? I've got green gas. I want to use green gas, so I'm not going to use a stupid plastic slide Tokyo Marui with green gas. I have to use duster gas. The VTECs have a metal slide, and so they can take green gas, at least. You do need to upgrade the parts if you want to reliably run CO2. I mean, the CO2 mags will work for the first couple of mags. So there's that, as well as the fact that if you want to continue to use and abuse your pistol, like maybe you are a little bit clumsy, you can drop it a couple times. This is what's left of the slide. That is the biggest piece of the slide that I have. And here's the blowback unit. You know, the Elite Force Glock, it took all of that. It took a fucking sledgehammer to the side of the slide where it's the weakest part and still can rock and roll. Fuck, I could bend the slide back into place after it fucking deformed outwards. That's absolutely amazing. And if you guys don't agree, I don't know what's wrong with you. Because as we have seen, the Elite Force Glock is the better performing option. What do you want me to say? So go to your local airsoft store, pick up an Elite Force Glock. No need to wait the 2.5 months. You know, you get customer service here in the States. If something were to happen, if you wanted to keep it stock, well, guess what? It's gonna take another 2.5 months to send it back overseas, hoping it doesn't get grabbed by customs on the way there. Otherwise, you're screwed. If something breaks legitimately, that is part of the manufacturing process and not because you're dicking around with it like I did, you're gonna be covered. Just pick up an Elite Force Glock. I don't know what else to say. That's truly amazing. My mind is absolutely blown away by how awesome it was that the VTEC just blew up when it took the first hit of the sledgehammer, at least to the side of the slide. And then the Elite Force just held in place. Like, that's awesome. And all of those hits to the frame with the sledgehammer, and it can still work and can still function. That is amazing. Guys, I think I've proven my point that the Elite Force Glocks are by far superior in every single way. Just pick up the Elite Force Glocks. That's all I have to say. If you guys have any further questions or further concerns, put them down in the comments section below. I don't know what other questions you guys might have that is relevant to these two right here, or what is left of them. But put them down in the comment section below. If you like the video, subscribe. I hope you did. This was about, what, 180, 100 bucks, 280 plus shipping. So I hope you guys liked it. Give me a thumbs up, give me a subscription. And I'm still just blown away. You guys take care. You guys stay safe, stay clean, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one. Wow, that's awesome. I got a video to make right now. Let's start editing.